Hey guys, Chook here with Chook's Outdoor Adventures. Well, I've said it before, I need to start focusing on some important issues with this video. So today we're going to talk about Bigfoot in Alaska and why I would shoot one. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, whoa, Chook's crazy, he believes in Bigfoot and UFOs, but if there was ever any doubt, now you know. So, sorry about that. So let's get into it. As you can see, I have this graphic here that I put together myself of the state of Alaska in all its glory and basic Bigfoot regions. Now, I have titled this video, Why I Would Shoot Bigfoot in Alaska, and let me just clarify, I would not shoot Bigfoot in the southeast panhandle where you see the big brown Bigfoot right there at the bottom corner. I wouldn't shoot a Bigfoot there. I consider those Bigfoot to be part of the Southeast Indian culture, and also they're more, I believe they're more nice. They're the more gentle Bigfoot of Northern California. It's Southern Alaska. It's kind of like the gentle Bigfoot. Once in a while they'll scream at you, throw a log, but you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. There's thick forests. I wouldn't shoot those videos, but once you creep a little farther north and to the west where you see the blonde Bigfoot, that's the Bigfoot I would kill in a second. Of course, don't go around shooting people in Bigfoot suits. We'll talk about that later. If I knew it was a real Bigfoot, I would kill that Bigfoot because it's evil. Now, people are going to say I'm crazy for believing in Bigfoot, but a lot of what we're going to go through in this video is sort of the First Nations of Alaska and some of their oral traditions. Now, Bigfoot have been sighted all over the continent, from Oklahoma to Florida to, of course, California and Washington, and all over the state of Alaska. There has been Bigfoot sightings, from the beginning. Now, I do want to say that little people are way more widespread. I mean, a small fraction of the legends have something that could resemble a Bigfoot. It's not very prominent in Alaska, except for the southern Alaska, of course, is very prominent. But across the whole state, universally, the little people are way more widespread. I mean, everybody had seen the little people, pretty much all the tribes, and it's pretty cool because you've got Yupik tribal members that, with their oral tradition before the time of contact, have described these little people that are almost like little Europeans that have beards and cone-shaped hats, and they're exactly like the elves and leprechauns that were described in Scotland. So I always thought that was super cool. But the little people are everywhere, and it's cool, like even pilots, flying their little small planes across western Alaska have seen these giant lit up cities at night of little people and just kind of freaked out where there's nothing, and they're just flying over the swamp and they see this big city of little people. But anyways, we're not going to get into that. We are going to get into the Bigfoot. The reason I mention little people is some stories are related, and I've got some UFOs there on the map, and as always with the paranormal, some Bigfoot sightings do coincide with UFO sightings and, general lights in the sky and paranormal activity. So we're going to get into it. Let's start off at the bottom. The Bigfoot in southeast Alaska. We're talking Cake, Juneau, Ketchikan, Heidelberg, that whole, we call it the panhandle of Alaska. Those Bigfoot I wouldn't touch. It's kind of scary because I go down there and hunt a lot. I'm more scared of the big brown bears when I'm hunting deer down there. But those Bigfoot, they're respected. Like, for instance, the Tlingit Indians, they're very protective of their culture and their oral stories, so I'm not going to say any oral stories on this video, but the Bigfoot seem to be part of the culture. They're respected and feared, and people believe in them. I've heard it called the Otter Man, the Wild Man, Hairy Man. But what's interesting is some of the accounts of deer hunters down there. Like, probably the coolest story I've heard was the deer hunter. It was this kid with his uncle. He was in a truck way down there in southeast Alaska, and this big 9-foot ape man just walked up to his truck with these, you know, gleaming eyes and just stared at him through the window and scared the crap out of him. They all walked off into the woods. You know, the kid was totally shooken up and frozen, couldn't do anything. Those sightings I find very, very interesting. Now, a side point, people say that, you know, you're an idiot. Why don't they ever find the bones of these Bigfoot, especially in Washington and California? Well, they're very social creatures. They're probably very smart. I think they would collect the bones and do something with them. They don't want to be found. But you also got to think about some of these areas where the Bigfoot are in are the most inhospitable areas, and humans can't even get to them, especially when we get to the Blondie Bigfoot. I mean, I've done that straight in a sea vessel where you're going in. I forgot what it's called. It's in between Kodiak and the peninsula, but you go through these glacier fjords or whatever they're called, and there's nothing but cliffs. Jagged rocky cliffs going straight up, and then big trees. There's nowhere to land a boat. There's nowhere to land a plane. You might be able to get into a lake way back, but there's just no way humans can really get to those areas, and those are the areas, interestingly enough, that the Bigfoot are sighted at. So I wouldn't mess with the Bigfoot down in southeast Alaska. If I was fearful for my life, and I thought one was going to kill me, yes, I would shoot at one. But I really wouldn't mess with those because they're ingrained with the Tlingit culture, for instance, and they've been more peaceful. That I believe they're related to the Bigfoot of Washington State, Northern California. Let's leave those guys alone. They're just whatever. It's a different species of ape man that somehow survived. I don't know. But one of the interesting things, that's not saying they can't be dangerous. One of the interesting things that I love about these Bigfoot Alaska stories is the trees on Prince of Wales Island that have been ripped up and turned upside down and shoved back into the ground, big trees. Scientists claim that it was a windstorm. A windstorm suddenly ripped some trees out, flipped them upside down, and then they got shoved really far down, upside down into the ground. They stand like that, you know, for decades. And I don't believe that. The locals, it's a legend all over the Alaska. The natives down there, the locals, they say, yeah, that's Bigfoot marking his territory. That's a Bigfoot showing how strong he is, or they are. They go around ripping trees up and shoving them down there just to mark their territory, show the humans and the bears, hey, this is Bigfoot territory, this is what we can do. And I believe that because even in the Matsu region, which is kind of where I live, the same thing has been found. The same phenomena has been found where these trees were ripped upside down and shoved back in the dirt. Now that's something pretty interesting. I've never seen a Bigfoot myself, but I did see tracks when I was a kid, but I think somebody might have made those in the snow because they were pretty close to town. It was probably just a prank. But people ask me if I have seen signs of Bigfoot. So that whole panhandle, like I said, is interesting. I wouldn't mess with those Bigfoot. Now in western Alaska, way over where you see the little people there, that's mainly just little people. They do have some stories, like the Yupik peoples have some stories which would match Bigfoot description. And I have talked to some people who've talked about some encounters in southwest Alaska where those little people are. And that the Bigfoot they have encountered had glowing red eyes, and you'd have dreams about them, and it was kind of like this netherworld, you know, shifting into different dimensions, kind of Bigfoot, which we'll talk about later. So that's creepy in itself, but I do believe that there are some Bigfoot that are actually big old ape hominids, and some Bigfoot that are able to shift interdimensionally. And I think in down in southeast Alaska, where you know, the big brown one is here, I think that is the case as well on some points. But going up to northern Alaska, pretty far northern, you see the northern, you see the UFO up there, and the smaller Bigfoot. So that is in a region where my grandmother was from, sort of the Kotzebue, Kayana, Kobuk River area. And I find it interesting there because my grandmother actually wrote, she translated when she was a teenager, so this was a very long time ago. She translated some oral tradition stories into a book called Kobuk River People that was printed by the University of Alaska Fairbanks like in 1964. So back then, it was finally printed, but she was a teenager way before then. I mean, she was a teenager in the early 19th century. Early 20th century, I guess. But anyways, she translated these stories, and one of the stories was just very fascinating, and it had to do with a UFO. It did have a big giant person in it, but this would be an example of a UFO mixed with a Bigfoot story. But it was very interesting because it was before the time of contact. They had never seen metal before at that time, and they described these flying rocks that made the sound of geese as they hovered and flew and, you know, created light. And then there was little people, but there was also a big old giant that commanded them. And in the story, the main guy of the story was able to use some traditional magic or traditional wisdom to basically decapitate the Bigfoot with a giant axe. And then the robot system on the flying rock took over and was shooting lasers. Anyways, it was like a crazy science fiction story, but it was a story that amazed me because it was generations and generations ago, and these people are describing you know, this really interesting stuff that they had never seen before. So I believe there's all kinds of stuff out there, but more common than the Bigfoot, sort of in very far north in Yupiaq territory in Alaska, would be the giant birds, birdmen, little people, pterodactyl size birds the size of airplanes that pilots have even seen. Very interesting stuff, but not kind of classic forested Bigfoot country. So now we go to the evil blondie Bigfoot here. And I don't know if they're really blonde. I just wanted to separate that Bigfoot in the picture from the rest of the Bigfoot. Bigfoot, not big feet. I clarified that in another video. But these are the evil Bigfoot. These are the Bigfoot that when I'm out bear hunting this spring, if I see one, I'm just going to shoot it. I'm going to make sure it's not a man in a Bigfoot suit. Let me be very clear about that. If you see what looks like a hairy ape, just don't start blasting at it. It could be some idiot that, I don't know why, would get dropped off in an airplane in a hunting region to scare hunters and get shot at in a monkey suit. I don't know why. They would almost deserve to get shot if they did that. But make sure you know identify what you're looking at before you shoot it. So I've covered this region because I don't want to describe it perfectly. You know, I grew up in Kachemak Bay. I grew up in Homer, Alaska. But this blonde Bigfoot is kind of covering the whole area. So I was fishing, trolling for king salmon with my uncle, Will Silvers. This was about 9 years ago. And we went by this bay, and my uncle said, that used to be the village that's over in that bay, and it was moved because Bigfoot were killing people. And I was like, you know, I'm obsessed with Bigfoot, so I was like, whoa, what do you mean? And he told me the story of, you know, the tribe, I believe it's Sukpiak people. You know, they're once called Aleuts, but then they've differentiated to the Sukpiak and the Aleutic. These were Sukpiak people. They had a village, and widely known mean Bigfoot there. Big, tall, hairy, ape-like men. This is a legend from generations ago. You know, this was probably pre-contact, or if there was contact, it was somewhere very far north, and they had only seen a couple Russian ships by this point. So the entire village was moved pretty far because the Bigfoot were killing people. Mean Bigfoot killing people. And I've after hearing this story, I did see an internet story about that same region and about the evil Bigfoot there. I don't know what's wrong with them. They're inbred or something, but they're aggressive Bigfoot that go around killing people. But these Bigfoot were killing people, and they moved the village, and hunters, old-timers, sourdoughs, everybody knows the legends in that area. And I had been bear hunting there for several years before I heard about it. So now, you know, I want to do a Bigfoot search in that area on my next bear hunt in a month. Chuck doesn't believe in Bigfoot, so he doesn't want to do that. So it'll be my little side video on that hunt. But you know, poo on Chuck for not believing in Bigfoot. I don't know what's wrong with that guy. But anyways, that is a very hard area to get to. That's getting close to those fjords on the Kodiak side I was talking about, where it's just rock. There's not a lot of places to land boats. There's not a lot of people living there at all. If anyone lives there, it's just seasonally. People go there to hunt bears and fish and do other stuff, but it's not a permanent human settlement, really, when you're talking about Rocky Bay and those people just go there to hunt. So anyways, evil Bigfoot, they're killing people. I have a UFO near there because at the head of the bay, ever since the, you know, I don't know, 40s, 50s, especially the 70s, there's a bunch of paranormal activity at the head of Kachemak Bay. There was a cult there. There's some creepy stories of people living way out East End Road, and some witches will, like, you're in the cabin in the middle of nowhere, you know, starting your fire in the 60s, and then some witch comes up and puts her creepy face right in your window. Stuff like that, but there was a bunch of UFO sightings there, tons of them, that would come out of the ocean. I thought that was interesting. I did a internship at the Pratt Museum in Homer in about 1989, and a local artist in Homer, Alaska did a huge exhibition of these paintings where she did these giant pastel paintings of UFOs over Kachemak Bay, and many of them were rising out of the water. But anyways, there's a lot of UFO sightings. I coincide the UFO sightings with Bigfoot sightings. They seem to pop up in the same areas. Paranormal. So that leads me to my last section of this talk. When I'm talking about shooting Bigfoot, what do you do if it's a Bigfoot that can shift? You know, it might be some sort of spiritual creature. It can shift into different dimensions, and that's coming at you. You know, you shoot at it, it turns into mist or whatever, and you can't kill it. What do you do then? So, you know, some people might ask me, well, how are you going to kill that Bigfoot, Chook? And I'll tell you right now how you can kill it. It's something called righteous anger. Now, to have righteous anger, you need to have a belief in a higher power. So if you're an atheist watching this video and you get attacked by an interdimensional Bigfoot that's got a UFO on its side or something, you're going to get probed hard. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's just the facts of it. You're going to get probed super hard. But if you have a belief system and you see a Bigfoot, you can use this righteous anger, say a prayer, pull out your 454 Toklat, and just get really angry about it in your beliefs. You don't scare me, and then you blow a big hole in its chest using both your big bear gun and your righteous anger. So that's all I have to say about that. So I'm sure there will be a lot of comments on this, and a related video I'll do in a few weeks is the Bigfoot versus Kodiak brown bear, which there has been some speculation about, and it's interesting that the Bigfoot are in some areas where there are bears, and there are some stories about that. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about my little Bigfoot story here, and let the debates begin. It's Chook, your friend in the field.